Okay, it's 4 o'clock. We're going to get started. I call to order the City of Gladstone 2025 City Council goal setting session at 4 p.m. on Friday, January 24th. If you look at the city website, you can go back almost 100 years or maybe more and find minutes of city council meetings from the past and look at all the things that got discussed and worked on and explored. And you won't find very many records of goal setting sessions and lists of goals in those past years. But in the approximately 10 years that I've been involved here in Gladstone, I've seen the city council routinely get together at the beginning of the year, especially after an election year, and do this process where they kind of focus on some of the things that are really important to moving forward effectively. There have been times when they have town hall meetings or public surveys or something to hear from the public first to sort of shape that process. There have been times when the main concern is how they're going to work together effectively. So they've done psychological assessments and personality behavior tests and things to find out their different styles, to see how they can coordinate the way they work. But most recently, it's come down to basically the kind of things we're going to work on this weekend, which is identifying some policy priorities and then figuring out how we can allocate resources to those to achieve some desired outcomes in the city. This is one of the rare times that you city councilors will be face to face, certainly with this many department heads at the same time, but even in a one-on-one situation. Because of the hierarchy, the structure, the way things work with city administrator overseeing the department heads and the city council overseeing the city administrator, those two ends of the spectrum don't often get together. But this is a rare opportunity to hear from each other and to really appreciate that way that we work together as a team. One group making policy, one group really implementing the policy that's been created. And at all aspects, personnel, financial, connection with the community. So this promises to be a very good meeting, and I will turn it over to our facilitator to guide us through the agenda and what we'll be doing.
Wonderful, thank you, Mayor. Jackie, do you want to say anything before we go? Are you ready to go in? Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I feel like you teed us off really well for a few different of the exercises that we're going to be doing specifically tonight. But before we get going, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting us into this process with you. We love working with city councils and city teams to develop their goal setting. It's personally my favorite part of the year and my favorite part of the work that we get to do, because there's so much energy and enthusiasm around figuring out how we're going to fit together as a team and what do we want to accomplish and what is this going to look like. So it's really exciting to be part of that process. So thank you so much, and we'll get going. We had some really great conversations with mayor and council leading up to the retreat that helped guide the development of our agenda, and also worked with staff to develop that as well. So thank you to everyone who put time into having those conversations and work into tonight's and tomorrow's retreat activities. So with that, I'll just outline our desired outcomes. So these were developed from the conversations that I had with council and working with Jackie and her team. And so what we're really trying to accomplish today and tomorrow is what the mayor said, developing goals that are clear, reasonable, and achievable, and that are aligned with resources. And so that means, what can the city really do? What's already kind of in process? What can we build upon? Where are there partnerships that we can work with? And so making sure that at the end of the 2 years of the biennium, that you feel like, yeah, this was reasonable, it was achievable, and you can see this is kind of how we left our mark on the city and the positive impact that we were able to have. And then in order to do that, we need to build a shared understanding of the current environment. So what's currently happening in the city, in the organization? What work is already underway? What are some of the things that are kind of coming down the pipeline, so to speak? Where are the priorities? And it's really important to think about where you currently are today before you think about where do we want to go in the next 2 years. So we'll build that common understanding, something to build upon together. And then, of course, underpinning all of this is building a cohesive team to advance the goals together. So you have some, familiar faces from the last time SSW was at the goal setting retreat back in 2023. There's some new faces. And so The council retreat is a really unique opportunity, as the mayor mentioned, to come together in an informal environment. Yes, it's a public meeting, but you're not up at the dais, you're all around in this U-shaped table with staff, an opportunity to interface together, get to know each other, hear about, each other's priorities, and have a dialogue with staff around what do we want to accomplish, what do we want to work on, what are our priorities for the next 2 years. And so it's a wonderful time to have informal, real, honest dialogue. So I hope that you take advantage of that opportunity to do that with your colleagues and your teammates. So that's why we're here. And then we've got a day and a half together. And so outlining our agenda for tonight, we're doing our welcome agenda overview right now. And then we're going to move into an overview of the roles of council and policy and the roles of administration and staff and the differences in how the two work together to form a strong partnership to advance the goals that you will be setting during this process. Then we'll take a break for dinner. I just want to check in with Tammy so you guys know something good to expect. What are the plans?
We're having pizza, so we'll head into the jury room about 5:15. There'll be sodas, waters in the fridge, along with pizza. It'll all be set up and ready to go.
Perfect. Thank you.
You can eat out here though. Just grab it.
Yeah, there's not enough room in there.
All right, so good. So some good pizza to look forward to. So we'll do that, and then at 5:45 we'll come back and we'll do the environmental stand. So that's tied to building that shared understanding of the current environment that I was talking about. So we'll learn about, hear from staff, some of the work that's currently underway and things that are planned, and what they're thinking about for the future. And then also talking about what's currently going on in the community and the organization. What are the needs that we need to be thinking about over the next couple of years? What are the trends in the organization that we're seeing? What's the local economy look like? And so we'll build out that together. And then we'll move into the 2020. So I wrote it as 2023 goal updates. This is not the goal refinement process. This is more of a holistic 30,000 view looking at all of the current goals. And so it's an opportunity to give status update on where do those goals currently stand and then flagging them. So if the work has been completed, then we're like, all right, that task has been complete. We can remove that one off the list. If any work is ongoing, we can mark it. Okay, this is ongoing as is. It doesn't need any changes, or there might be objectives on the list that need refinement. And so there might be some discussion about how that refinement might need to take place. We're going to limit the discussion for this piece because what we really want to do is just get a really high level view of where are the areas needing refinement in the current council goals. That way, tomorrow when we come in the morning, we'll be ready to go to figure out, okay, well, what refinements need to take place, and we'll work together in small groups and together as a large group to figure out what those refinements are. So we'll get as far as we can in the goal update process. Maybe we'll get through all of them. I'm not anticipating that we will, but I'm just leaving some flexibility in the agendas tomorrow. So in the morning, we can come in and finish any of that, just the goal status update before we move into the goal refinement. So then we'll spend the last 10 minutes at 7:20. We'll do some wrap up next steps, give you an idea of what to expect for tomorrow. And then our plan is to adjourn at 7:30 so that you can go home, relax, get a good night's sleep, and then get ready to come back tomorrow morning. Any questions about what we're doing or our agenda? Everybody sounds good? All right, great. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go into a quick warm-up activity. So we're going into a day and a half of a council retreat. So it's a long time. And so as if same thing as if you were gearing up for running a race or doing some sort of exercise, you do a little bit of warm-up. And research has actually shown that if you can get someone to talk one time in a meeting, the likelihood of them actually participating in the meeting is much, much higher. So we're going to do a warm-up. I promise not to be too cheesy, but hopefully you'll play along. And so something that we do on our team in January, every year we've done it for the last couple of years, it's been really meaningful, is setting an intention for the year or a word of the year. So we figure out, okay, what word of the year really encapsulates what we're trying to achieve or what's going to be guiding us throughout the year as we think about the goals or the things that we want to achieve for our resolutions. So I want to challenge all of you to think about what might your word of the year be. And so as you're thinking about it, you can write it down with the markers and the sticky notes in front of you. but I'm not gonna let you get off that easy. So think about your word of the year. I also, is everybody familiar with like the concept of TED Talks? Everybody seen a TED Talk? Does anybody not know what a TED Talk is? And that's okay. We talked about open, honest communication. So you don't do TED Talks. Okay, so a TED Talk is like, there are these conferences that get assembled either nation, like all around the country, and they bring in academics or experts in their fields who present what they call TED Talk, and it's like something around between 10 and 20 minutes, summarizing research that they've done or a topic that they're really passionate about. And so, I mean, it's everything from like space to behavioral economics and every, public health and all sorts of topics. So anything and everything in between. So my ask for you is like, after you're thinking about, okay, what's the word of the year, my intention for the year, think about what's a topic that you could give like 10, 15-minute TED Talk on with like little to no preparation or research. So really that gets at like, what am I passionate about? What do I know really well? And so it could be professional. You happen to be really passionate about the work that you do in a professional setting, which hopefully everybody here is. But it also could be something personal too, like maybe you love to bake bread, or maybe like you know how to plan a perfect vacation. So anyway, so think about what your TED Talk might be. And then my final ask of you is to think about a song that energizes you. So like a pump up song or something, like you're listening to music. If there's a song that you really like, because as you share, Kelsey, who I haven't introduced yet, this is Kelsey, everyone. And so Kelsey's going to be supporting us today and tomorrow by taking notes. So everything that I do on the board up here, she's doing a graphic electronic copy. And so we'll have notes with in a PDF form of all the pictures of the boards that we do together on the paper. And then she's capturing it all digitally too. And so that all gets packaged into your PDF so that you'll have that. But anyway, so as you're sharing what your song is, Kelsey, jot that down and we'll make a playlist. So that way you have a City of Gladstone Council leadership team playlist of songs that energize you. And we will be playing it during this time. All right. So everybody just take a minute to like write down a word. You can write it big on there so everyone sees. We're going to put it up here. Is anybody ready to share?
For the word,
Yeah.
I got resilient.
Resilient. Maybe write it on a piece of paper. Yeah, write it big on a piece of paper because we're going to put it up here. Resilience. Tell us about resilience.
That's a TED Talk thing?
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to TED Talk yet.
Okay, we can do the words and then maybe if you don't have your TED Talk. Right? What does resilient mean for you?
Consistency, being persistent, pushing through.
We'll go down the. Is everybody about ready? Because maybe we'll just go with that paper. Or we can. Are you still council? I'm thinking like, are you still council president or? Yes. Okay. I wasn't sure that.
But again, yes.
Yes.
Currently, yes.
Currently council president. Okay. Let's do it.
My word is belong.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Community where everybody feels safe, heard.
Heather, my word is balanced.
Okay. Tell us about balance.
I, just get asked a lot of questions, and I'm always trying to balance, community goals with what people are looking to do and trying to find balance that makes sense.
I didn't ask if you know your TED Talk. I don't. No. All right. We'll go around again. What about you guys in your songs?
Mine started with my fight song. Oh, that's good stuff.
Probably not yet. Okay, all right. What about you, Heather?
Shake It Off, Taylor Swift.
Awesome. Love it. Shake it off. Okay.
Like
basically like any
Oh, yeah.
any Taylor Swift song typically does the trick. Or
Yeah, any Taylor Swift
Any
song, but
or Shake It Off is
Shake
good.
It Off.
Awesome. All right. Okay, and then we talked about. I want to make sure we're not doing this loud.
Loud.
Loud. Okay, Councilor Loud.
I also think belonging.
Belonging. Okay, great. And so talk to me about what that means to you.
Yeah, it's a feeling of being part of a community and having sort of an inclusivity that means the community supporting each other.
All right. What about a Tampa song or your TED Talk?
Oh, probably one of my weird hobbies.
Your weird hobbies.
Yeah.
What are your weird
I
hobbies?
do Japanese tea ceremony and I've done for like 10 years, so that's
That sounds amazing. Awesome. And then what's a good Tampa song or song I entered?
I haven't figured that one out yet.
No. Okay.
My work is discovery.
That's pretty. Oh, I like that.
Also in a personal sense.
Discovery. They're great.
Don't have a song.
No song. From public service. Thanks. All right, and then Councilor Levant.
Levante.
Levante.
Yeah.
Okay.
Calm.
Oh.
When faced with, to try to be mindful of emotions, kind of taking over the thought process, and being mindful of certain indicators, and being able to kind of step away from the situation that you go to the balcony, if you will, and kind of look down on the situation. What's actually happening. The song would be Who Stole the Kishka. It's a fantastic polka.
Okay. All right, you're really gonna like
No.
challenge Kelsey.
You can go with Frank Yankovic or the Great American Polka Festival. Either one, good. But Who Stole the Kishka? And my TED Talk would, what I worked in for years, would be probably traffic safety education, helping folks with, yeah, generally in that. So.
I chose growth, more on a personal level and just, I guess, work related as well. So I'm just always constantly wanting to grow as a human. Yeah. Pump up songs, probably anything by Lil Wayne or I can't really think
Is
of
there
one.
a particular Lil Wayne song?
Yeah, but I.
You're like, but I don't want to tell the title. That's okay. We'll find something.
And my TED Talk would probably be on thrifting.
Thrifting.
Or secondhand, like benefits of secondhand shopping, reducing and reusing and all that. Yeah.
Thank you.
My word this year is community.
Community.
And I chose that because I have put my foot into a lot of different areas and I want to make sure that wherever I'm at, there's a feeling of community and engagement in all of my space. I'm old and my word is imagine, or my song is imagine, because I just don't listen to others. I mean, it's just, that's my song. I love the Beatles. Does anybody in this room know who they are? So anyway, that's my song. My word is community, and the intention was a feeling of community in all my spaces. And I don't know what kind of a TED Talk I would give. Right now, I'm just I've been inundated with 5 little boys at my house, so I have a hard time getting out of that mothering space right now. Thinking about anything else.
Maybe be okay on parenting, how to survive.
That's grandma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, grandma.
John.
Deliberate.
Deliberate.
Deliberate with public safety, with safety and security, deliberate with staff.
All right, what about a pump up song?
Not to give any titles, but I will tell you that ACDC and San Diego.
All right, that's good. That's all, that is all we need to know. We can take it from
We
there.
all probably thinking about one at work. What it's like to-
Awesome. All right. I was like, usually there's like some good like 80s bands that come up.
Yes.
So yes, thank you for not disappointing. What about a TED Talk?
TED Talk would likely be on coaching athletics, specifically football.
See.
My word is connection. Okay. Actually did this at home, quickly here. And I mean, connection was a thread that went through all of when I was kind of writing down my goals for the year. Connection to self, connection to others, connection to my career, connection to family. Those are all things that are, that's the word that came up for me this year. And I mean, I honestly, Jackie won't be surprised. I have like 5 TED Talks, I think, that I would want to give. Like, when you said that, I'm like, ooh. But I think that one of the things that I am most passionate about is mindfulness and community. I think that's what I would probably choose for this. Either that or the importance of relationships with women specifically. That's been a passion of something I taught for a long time. So yeah. And my pump up song is definitely Roar. Like, yeah, of course.
Thank you. I see all like a lot of themes of like your connection to like your TED Talks too.
My word was continuation, and I feel like I missed the mark a little bit, but I mean it in the sense that the city has done some really fabulous things in the last several years, and it's really refreshing and exciting to go connect with other civic-minded leaders and say, yeah, Gladstone, how's that library? How's the new public works building? And so it's been such a good couple of years that I just want to see if you don't. TED Talk, I kind of lean towards why all kids should learn how to swim. All kids just at a young age should learn that. And you don't have to become a master, but at least if you get thrown in the deep end, your head above water. And then pump up song is Up Down by Morgan Wallen.
So, I got my kid in swim lessons right now for that same reason.
My word is also balance, because Heather's so smart, I figured I'd just copy her. So I guess I looked at it from a personal perspective and sort of balance with work life and balance with family and all other stuff. And then from a sort of professional city point of view, sort of like balancing priorities and balancing sort of everything that has to go on within the city, and sort of, you know, when you're setting goals like this, understanding that there's a lot of things that the council or staff want to do, and there's a lot of things that as a city you have to do, and sort of balancing those two things out, and how do you do that in a meaningful way. So I think that's why I chose that. Song's tough because I love music, and so it really depends on my mood. So I think I just thought about when I was in law school, before every final, I used to listen to Welcome to the Jungle from Guns N' Roses, which probably ages me a little bit. But so I'd say that one, because that one, you know, it's consistently over the decades has been a good pump-up song.
Doesn't disappoint.
No. TED Talk, I sort of went back and forth onto One's, I think, sort of cheesy, but like I've been doing local government law for over 25 years, and I really have a passion for what local governments do. And I think a lot of people don't realize or understand how large of an impact local governments have on their lives. So doing a TED talk and sort of about that was certainly, probably something I would really enjoy doing. And then I'm also a father of a 20-year-old and 18-year-old, and we do a lot of sort of like philosophical talks right now about life and growth and that kind of stuff, and just sort of how to be a compassionate person in today's society, in today's world. And so I think that would also be
Both those ideas are great.
Before I share my word, I have a suggestion. I am new and don't know a lot of you, so I was going to suggest maybe we could introduce ourselves. That would be super helpful, but we don't have to do that. So my word is progress, and like I said, I'm new, so just keeping moving on with goals, moving on and creating momentum, and just not standing still. My song, you're gonna have to come back to me on that because I don't listen to a lot of music. I mostly listen to books in the car, and my TED talk would also be on books and how to read more because I read 3 books a day. So, how to keep how to read that much and still have life.
Well, I know who I'm going to talk to after the break. It's like one of my goals is like to find more time to read. So
I would agree with her as far as books on in the car makes you get a lot of listening done.
yeah,
It's very helpful. My word is exploration, and similar to Nancy, it's kind of it's a personal thing. It's entering a next phase in life and exploring that and going from there. As far as my song, it is the best one ever for pumping me up is Everlong by Foo Fighters, especially in the rock version, not the acoustic version. And as far as the TED Talk, I know a little about a lot, but I don't feel I know a lot about many things. So I would be a good support. I can contribute, but as far as being able to do the talk on my own, be quite static.
awesome. Thanks for sharing there.
Right. My word is abundance. And from a city standpoint, I think in terms of having enough of the important things like housing and resources and other things that people need, and coming out, well, maybe we haven't come out of it yet, but coming out of a period of the pandemic when we felt like a lot of things were sort of cut short and locked down and experiences were limited. I think of abundance as kind of the counter to that, of having more of what we hope to have. As far as a TED Talk, I think I'd like to talk sometime to people who are interested about neurodiverse children and how to see the growth and the differences that they make and the ways that the things you spot that are showing how they grow and connect to the world in different ways. I have that experience because we have 2 grandchildren on the autism spectrum, ages 6 and 8, and my wife and I spend a lot of time caring for them. And every week there's something new that I appreciate. As far as a song, I'm close to Councilor Garlington's generation. I listen to Kissin' Radio, and nothing later than about 1975 on there, and I know all the ones before that. So it's a little bit of a cliche, but "Start Me Up" by the Rolling Stones is a good get you pumped up song.
I'm Silas. I'm the new public
And
works
then
director.
we'll go around.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Second week, my word is abide.
Abide.
Mainly because I really like it, and I like that it's the definition. It's talks about awaiting and bearing patiently and endurance withstanding, which goes a lot with public works. You got to be able to endure a lot and figure things out. So, and this is a new role for me, and it's been great for 2 weeks so far. It's been a pleasure. And as far as a TED Talk, I think I'd probably go with how to drive a stick shift in France. Yeah. My wife and I love to travel there. Been there every year for the past 5 or 6, and take about a 2-week trip. And we'd like to just go out in the countryside and drive around. It's a lot of fun. So my song would be Maize, Let a Band Fish, PHI. I have lots of other songs, but that just.
Well, we'll go around the room and we can do some introductions. I think that would be beneficial too. But before we do that, I don't know about you, but as people were talking, I was thinking like, oh, I have a connection with that, or oh, that's really interesting. I'm interested in that, or I'd love to talk to that person about that topic. And so I'm sure that the wheels were turning in your own minds as well too. And so it's just an opportunity to share, to get to know each other. You come and you get up, at the dais for a meeting. You don't have a lot of time to get to know each other, or you're working in different facilities or across the city. So it's just a nice time to get to know each other a little bit more. So hopefully that fosters some productive and fruitful conversations for the breaks and later throughout the year, and then how your word of the year continues to guide you. So before we get into guidelines for success, why don't we start with Silas, since you're new, I'm going to pick on you. We'll go around and then you can just share your name and your title.
Silas Richardson, and a brand new public works director.
Yay.
Michael Milch, mayor for 2 years, 2 years to go.
Kathy Brecker, finance consultant.
New city councilor, and actually my song is "I Am the Tiger."
Yeah, and then if you did not give your song.
Chad Jacobs from the city attorney's office.
Luke Roberts, City Council.
Very economic development tourism.
Josh Barber, chief of police.
Michelle Crusoe, community center manager.
Andrew Monty, city councilor.
Nancy McDonald, human resources consultant.
Heather Austin, planning consultant, and I missed my TED talk when we went through, so I will just say that I think it's trip planning with a specific emphasis on packing for a trip.
Are you like a cute person? Do you have
It depends. On the trip.
All right, so then you need to talk to Silas for his all.
I know, the brands, and then you. Yes.
Yeah. All right, and did you give us a song earlier?
I did. I was this one.
This one.
I am Vanessa Huckabee, Gladstone City Councilor. My TED Talk, I thought of 2, but one was very similar to the word of the year for me. So I'm going to go with adapting to change. I'm not the schmee on that, but it would be good. And then my song is Glory by Common.
Jackie Batts, City Administrator. Kathy, I thought your word was expiration, so I'm glad to.
That's what I thought you said.
Expiration. She's like speaking up. That's really funny. All right, and then did you think about?
I already did my song, but my TED Talk would be how to run a marathon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The Wolf by Q-H-U, not who. The Wolf Totem by H-U. They are Mongolian rock. Great singing.
I actually heard that one. Okay, we'll have a very nice collection of songs. All right. Well, thanks. Thank you. All right, before we go into our next part of our agenda, I want to just talk about guidelines for success. Sometimes people call them ground rules, but we like to call guidelines for success. And it's just around talking about, okay, got a lot of ground to cover over tonight and tomorrow, a lot of big decisions to make. So how are we going to agree to, what do we need to be successful, essentially, to achieve our desired outcomes together? So feel free to just share something. What do you think we need to have for our guidelines in order to be successful in the time? Respectful. Why is that important? Or what does that mean to you?
Basically, not just listening and not having prejudgments and being respectful to other people's different points of views and things that they might bring up, not if you don't necessarily, agree or like them, but still respecting that other people has value to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's in like venues like this where it's okay to disagree, and actually it's in that disagreement where, and the tension of like having that discussion, and then you ultimately come to a decision that's probably stronger because you've already talked about all the potential issues with it, and so being able to have that right in a respectful way is really important. What else do we need? And why is an open mind important?
It's important if you have a priority that somebody else doesn't have, or vice versa, that you're able to listen with intention. I truly think about it before shutting it down.
Thoughtful.
Energy and thinking beyond points of view.
Participation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why is participation important in a goal setting?
If you don't participate, you won't get any information.
Yeah. So it's important. Let me make sure I spell this correctly. Sorry, I get in trouble if I start talking and writing at the same time. So participation is important, right, on both sides. So it's not a counselor's goal. It's the council's goal. It's a collective goal. The goals are reflective of the council as a body. And so making sure that everyone participates and all voices are heard ensures that there's unity behind those goals. I mean, these are goals that you're signing up for 2 years to advance the work of the city. And so having, respectful, open, thoughtful communication and participation really solidifies that everyone's on board and there's a cohesion and everyone can kind of coalesce together among the goals. Similarly, from a staff perspective, participation is really important too. Anybody want to just shout out why staff participation might be important in a goal setting?
Feasibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about all of the other things that are happening in the city. So Chad said like there's a lot of things you can do, but there's a lot of things that the city has to do. That really stuck out to me because a lot of times I'll think about, with goal setting or strategic planning, it's like, well, organizations, you can decide whatever you want to do. I mean, within reason, looking at it that way, but you can't do it all at one time. So that idea of like prioritization really comes into play. But especially in local government, in that perspective, there's things that like you have to do, whether you want to or not. It's the responsibility of the city, and those things take time and resources. So thinking about that too. So having staff participate to share, their perspectives, thinking about resource allocation, what kind of providing additional context about what's happening in the city. But they also have a lot of expertise in this room that they can share, and so by participating together, you get to stronger shared goals. Thank you. That's a really good one. Yeah.
Questions
Yeah.
would be the word.
Questions. Yeah. And I think too, like there's new members on council. There's a lot to learn, and also for existing council members that have a few years under your belts, it's always okay to ask questions. And in fact, it's usually if you have a question, chances are someone else in the room has a question, and it's better to just get everything out in the open so you have that clarity.
If I just say a question doesn't necessarily mean opposition either. Just maybe clarity. Or kind of have a better understanding.
Yes. Anything else that we need to be successful?
Reasonableness,
Yeah.
what Chad was saying.
So what does that mean to you?
When we're agreeing on goals, take into consideration the resources that the organization has, as well as the staffing available to support that.
All right, did we capture everything? Any other ones to add? Are you guys ready to go to the next thing?
I'm going to steal somebody else's word and say connection. Sometimes if ideas come up independently, but if we can see connections between them that sort of enhance and strengthen them, I think that's important to look for. We worked in separate departments, but one of the things you learn in the city is that your public works department and your fire department have a very symbiotic relationship with one another. And you need to be sure that they both have the resources they need, so that if somebody working on a public works project gets injured, the fire department can get there on time. And if the fire department needs to put out a fire, there's water in the pipes that the public works department works on. And so, you kind of depend on one another.
Mm-hmm. Nobody works in a vacuum. We'll kind of rely on each other and everything's interconnected. About that in some of the goals. Did we miss anything? Is there anything else that we need? All right, let's move on to our next agenda item, which is supporting a strong partnership. And I'm going to have Kelsey come up and help me move this to paper. I'm wondering where would be, you guys have an idea of where might be a good spot to hang this? Jackie, do you have
We had a lot more white wall space the last
I know, I think you guys have put up a lot more artwork the last time since the last time I was here. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, just sit it in front of
You
the
need
guys.
another tall person to help get it up.
Can we put it up on behind the, so it's special artist space, so it won't like take off any paint or anything. It might be fun to hear. You can try that.
Yeah, why don't we go here and leave it on the.
Sorry, I know.
We'll just watch you do it.
I'm taller, so.
All right, well, you guys have to tell us if that's, is that
We need to go up just a little
a
bit.
little bit more? Okay. Is that good?
Yeah.
All right, otherwise I'm gonna stare at it, you guys. It's gonna bother me the whole time. Okay, awesome. All right, thank you. All right, so thinking about building a strong partnership, so it really comes down to the system in which we work. And so has anybody taken the League of Oregon Cities training for elected officials? Yes. All right, so the information that I'm going to share is really, it's more of like a condensed version of that, but it's a lot of the same content. But does anybody, can anybody share with me the different forms of government in local government?
Strong mayor,
Okay,
which is not what we have
it's
here.
not what Gladstone has, and how does the strong mayor form of government work?
Well, I think that the mayor and city council have greater responsibilities and greater authority, similar to what we used to see in Portland, where city councilors were actual commissioners of various departments in the city, as opposed to what we have here where we hire professionals who know how to do things.
Right, yeah. So in a strong mayor form of government, the mayor is actually serving as like the CEO or like the head of the administration and head of all of the staff. So all the staff report to the mayor, and they're carrying on all of that work. And in fact, so City of Beaverton, just a couple years ago, transitioned from, they had a strong mayor form of government for many years, transitioned to a council manager form of government. So yeah, so there's a strong mayor. What else? Are there others?
The manager one and then the administrator one are two different forms. I believe the manager. Not a blank, but the manager is stronger. The seat of our administrator would be a stronger overseer. The manager would run the show. Am I seeing that right? How did that work, Chad?
Typically, the difference between a manager and an administrator is that an administrator needs to involve the council with making decisions on hiring and firing department heads, where a manager can make those decisions without. That's the main difference.
It's in your charter.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's one, so before we jump into the one that you have, there's also, so the mayor mentioned it's the commissioner form of government. So that's what City of Portland had it up until recently, because they recently voted to change, and they're doing all sorts of training and getting all their new counselors on board. But with the commissioner form of government, essentially instead of the mayor having all of that like executive administrative power, that's shared among the commissioners. So the commissioners are in charge of various city departments in implementing the work. So the big difference is in a strong mayor commissioner form of government, the elected officials are in charge of implementing the work, as opposed to like a council manager or council administrator form of government. So does anybody want to guess which, or does anybody have to know maybe Jackson is the first city?
Well, I remember, I forgot though.
So it was Dayton, Ohio. According to ICMA. You did know that? Oh, you didn't say? Oh, you're from Ohio. Okay. You're like, you're claim to fame, among other things. But I'm not going to talk to you about the Buckeyes. So we don't talk about them. We don't talk about the Buckeyes.
That was my TED Talk choice, but I figured it wasn't.
Do I wanna come out right out of the gate and talk about it? Yeah, and so so thinking about council manager form of government or the administrative form of government, it actually originated in the late 1800s as a result of an essay that Woodrow Wilson wrote before he became president. But around like the late 1800s, like, so thinking about like just setting the scene about what was going on in the country at that time. Industrial revolution, so cities were growing rapidly. They were investing in their infrastructure, which was great. But on the other hand, there was also a lot of political corruption happening. And so Woodrow Wilson wrote this essay around public administration. And what he was calling for is the separation of politicians and administration so that the cities could see the full benefit of all of the investments that they were making into the cities to separate the two. So why am I bringing this up? Why is it important? Well, because the form of government is really essentially, it's the system that you're working in. And it's really important that you know what that system is because it's important to know your roles and your expectations and your responsibilities. And especially with goal setting and thinking about what council wants to accomplish, especially over the next 2 years and beyond, in order to be successful, it's helpful to know your rank and know your expectations and how you're going to work together as a team. So that's why we talk about it. And so thinking about the system that you're working in as the council administrative form of government, it's really thinking about it as two concentric circles. So you've got the policy side, which is council, and then you've got your administration side, which is the staff. And so first we'll talk about like the roles of what the council does and what the staff does. So on the policy side, so council, you set the what. So you get to say what you want the city to focus on. Whereas the administration or the staff determines how that what is carried out. So they determine the how.
Or if you can afford it.
What's that?
I said, or if you can afford it.
Or if you can afford it, yes. So they're implementing it. So council gets to set the what, so what are we going to be working on? And then the administration, the staff is implementing it. So how are we going to get it done? Another thing that council does that you're responsible for is, so you're supposed to represent constituents and keep staff informed. And so this is really important because you might have staff members that live in Gladstone, but it's not their full responsibility to represent constituents the way that council members are. So as members of council, you're the ones having communications and conversations and discussions with your fellow community members at the grocery store, just around town. And so as you're in your position, it's your duty to be able to represent your communities that you serve. And so whereas staff, if they happen to live in Gladstone, yes, they might have a perspective, but it's not the same weight of the responsibility that council has in order to know what's going on. So you know, it's really important to keep your finger on the pulse of the community, so to speak. And side by side with that is it's really important to keep staff informed about what those priorities are, what's happening in the community, what's important to them. And so representing constituents and then keeping the staff informed is really important. And then on the staff side, it's up to staff to provide technical expertise in terms of how to get the work done. So never before in local government has there been so much experience and expertise at your fingertips, essentially, as counselors. So thinking about positions in public works or police, think about like the amount of education and certification and ongoing training that's required to even just have those positions and have those jobs. It would be impossible for counselors to have all of that expertise. So I'm sure you have your, various areas that you're passionate about or that you have, experience in. But the benefit of this system is that you have a staff and department heads that have years of experience, formal training, certifications, and you can lean on them to provide that expertise and provide that information to you.
Can I add one thing?
Mhm.
Not only do we have some new people in positions that we had before, but we also have two positions that we did not have on staff before 2 years ago. We have a planner on our own staff and a business development and tourism director on our own staff. So that's additional expertise that this council didn't have the last time you were guiding us through this process.
Mm-hmm.
But those new positions came about as a result of this process.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very important, and I'm glad they're here this day.
Yeah, just continuing to build a strong team. And so something that I didn't mention earlier, but when thinking about, setting the what for council and the staff is determining the how, thinking about the fact that you have all of this technical expertise in the room, so to speak, where we've seen councils run into trouble where things can get challenging in the past, is you've got council members that come on board that have years of experience in an administrative type role. And so you're used to running an organization, but it's really important to remember that as a counselor, it's not your role. It's Jackie's role and it's staff's role to determine the how. And so that's kind of where things can get a little bit challenging with there. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. And then also, so another thing that council is responsible for is to set your goals and your priorities and direction for the organization. So because you're representing the community and you know what's important to them, and you've been elected to serve, it's your responsibility to set the goals and priorities and direction for the city. So it's again, that's what, and focusing what do we need to be working on. Whereas for staff, and this is where it can get tricky for staff, especially if you live in the community or staff is passionate, knows best practices, you know, participates in conferences and learning all sorts of new ways of doing things. And that's real. So it's important to remember as staff members, it's like, you're not in charge of setting your goals and directions of priorities. That's council's job. And your job is to determine the how, but also aligning the goals with resources. So thinking about, okay, how are we going to get the work done? So resources are with the budget, thinking about staffing. So what do we need in order to get the work done? And then finally, you might not necessarily think about this as a policy decision, but it's incredibly important, and it's council's responsible to approve the budget and contracts. And so you set your direction, staff puts together a budget to align resources with that, vision, but then it's up to council to approve the budget and the contracts. So all of the organizations that provide services to the city. And so staff can't do that. It's up to the council to be able to decide how are we going to spend the money of the organization. And then with staff, they're not approving the budget, but they're carrying out the projects and programs. So once that direction has been set and the budget's been made and approved, then it's up to staff to carry out those projects and programs to get the work done. Any questions around your roles and how they differ between the two sides? So because they're two concentric circles, as you see, there's the space in between and where they intersect. And so where they come together, that's really where your partnership comes into play. And in working together. And so just like in any relationship, whether it's with your friends or your spouse, it's something that takes work, and you have something that you have to nurture and takes time. And so that's not unlike this relationship. Isn't unlike other relationships where it's going to take time to have investment and understanding, and there might be a little bit of conflict along the way, but trying to have clear roles and expectations of how you're going to work together is really important in terms of building a really strong team. And so these are the roles. So then what are the expectations of each side? So let's talk about policy on the policy side. What are expectations of what you need to do, what's expected of you, or in this system of how you're going to work?
Consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing too erratic, I guess.
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
That I guess in a sense that we're kind of pulling in the same direction. I'm not sure it's a well-formed thought that I had, but they seem like feel like would be useful is,
a consensus. We're working to come to a majority or consensus together, so you're not just all have your one-off goals that you're trying to set.
Yeah, I'm gonna write it down. I grabbed both of those, so consistency and consensus. But really that's getting at is acting as one body. And so your authority is with the body. And so the decisions that you make, they're not reflective of one person. They're reflective of the entire council, and that's how you're going to move the work of the city forward. And so what happens if you don't have consistency and the goalposts are changing? What happens for staff? What's the impact on staff and the community? Yeah,
I don't know where to go.
yeah, it's hard to make progress, because if you're trying to, if you're not consistent and this what is always changing, then staff's like, okay, yeah, I can do that, but then it's like they're chasing all of this moving target. Can be really challenging for them to implement your goals. And then also just to build off this idea of consensus and acting as one body. It can be challenging sometimes with councils. If sometimes you're going to have a decision that you vote on and it's unanimous on the council, and then sometimes there might be some really tough decisions that you work through. And so sometimes the challenging things that we see coming up is if you don't have consensus, it's still really important to act as one body after the decision's been made. And so what does that look like? Well, sometimes we've seen in other communities, after a vote or after a council meeting, like a counselor either getting on social media or talking to someone and undermining the decision that was made. It's like, I didn't vote that way. I don't support that. And so that gets really challenging, right? Because if the council is supposed to make a decision and set the what for the organization, but then you've got one counselor saying, I didn't agree with that. That's not my vote. It makes it really confusing for the community in terms of what's the direction, where are we moving towards? And it also makes it really difficult for staff to have that direction too. There's a thoughtful way to go about disagreeing. It's okay to disagree, but I think coming back to the ground rules of being respectful, you can say something like, council had a really difficult decision tonight, and I disagreed with the decision that was made, and at the same time, I support the will of the council, and I'm gonna agree to move forward with that decision, even though it wasn't my individual vote to go that way. And then being able to move on. Because what happens if you don't, again, we've seen in other communities, bringing up old decision over and over again, it can make it really difficult for staff to move forward. It can be frustrating for other council members too, because it's like, okay, everyone, we know what your positions is, you stated it, and it's like, but the council voted this way, and it's time to move forward. So that's why it's really important to have that consistency, have that consensus, and act as one body. What else? What other expectations of council? Action. Goals are actionable. Mm-hmm.
Something that can be accomplished.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because what happens if they're not actionable? Figure out how to do that. Yeah, staff can't do it, or they don't. If it's not clear. What else?
Goals are created with a clear outcome in mind,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not just some abstract idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what about just expectations in general? We talked a little bit, those words are around goal setting, but just what about just like working in this system together? Right, like thinking about expectations for council meetings. How you guys are gonna work together, yes.
I think we can rely on best practices and knowledge and experience of staff in helping to shape goals that are actionable and that have good outcomes. So we don't work in a vacuum and then turn it over. But that partnership part of it is, you know, we can run ideas past staff and maybe Chad or Jackie or Silas from other experience and other places can bring us the knowledge that, you know, you tweak the idea a little bit and it might work a little better. I don't mind getting that kind of feedback. I think it's important, and I think that helps us work as a team when we can depend on the expertise of staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to capture it as communication protocols, because I think it's what you're saying. It's really important to be able to rely on that technical expertise. But thinking about working as a council, it can be challenging about knowing like what are the rules of engagement between an elected official and staff. And so I'm not exactly sure how your council will state it, and perhaps Jackie can provide a little bit of insight, but typically, it's important that if you do have questions or you do want to reach out for technical expertise or ideas, that all those questions go through Jackie. And then she can either answer the question to you directly or can work with the department heads to be able to share that information back. The reason why that's important is because, again, council is setting the what, but staff is determining the how. And so sometimes, you know, counselors, you don't really realize the weight that you carry when you walk into a room in City Hall. You're definitely Jackie's boss, but you're not the boss of staff. So all of staff, like, they report to Jackie. She's their boss. But when you walk into the, you know, walk in or pick up the phone or send an email, there's a lot of weight that's being carried with you in your position. And so staff, it can be really confusing for staff in terms of like, are you directing my work? Do you want me to go in this direction? I need to check with Jackie, or Jackie says this thing, or I'm implementing it this way. And it can get really challenging. And so I think what you're saying, Mayor, is that you want to make sure you have clear communication to be able to lean on staff. And so, and that's totally realistic and reasonable, and because that's why they got all the technical expertise. And so just making sure that, you know, doing it in a way that doesn't cause any sort of like confusion in terms of roles. But also another thing that's really important for Jackie is to keep everyone informed and kind of on the same level of information. And so if one counselor is reaching out and has questions, it's likely that someone else has questions too. And so part of Jackie's role is to be able to share all of that information with council in advance of a meeting, especially sometimes if there's, you know, a packed agenda or there's lots of stuff that's going to be discussed, being able to manage all those questions that are coming in and getting the information to everyone quickly. And that leads another one that hasn't been mentioned yet, but I want to make sure we bring up, is an expectation that council is prepared. So prepared for council meetings. And so I wonder if someone could tell me what that sounds like, or what that would look like to you, what being prepared looks like.
Your packet. Staff puts a lot of work into the staff report at an elevated level that helps you understand what kind of policy you're trying to want. So it's really important to do your packet.
Raise questions with staff through Jackie well enough in advance that she can get answers not only to you, but to everyone else on the council. So we're all working with the same information.
There are still times when you can ask those questions in a public setting, but at least staff will have been prepared to provide the answers.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a good outcome from like a gotcha moment or a question at Ken council meeting. it's not really productive for the partnership that you're trying to build. But then also staff might not be fully prepared to get you the answer that you need. And again, it goes back to what your role is of setting the what and setting the goals and direction. And if you don't have the information that you need, then you can't make those decisions and provide that direction. So making sure that you
If you're good at gotcha questions, save them for when people come from the county or from Metro.
Yeah, and then that leads into another one, which an expectation of council is to make decisions. So it's your job to make decisions. Because what happens if council doesn't, what happens if council doesn't make decisions?
Nothing.
Yeah, like nothing happens. So staff is kind of like, well, I'm waiting for this direction. I'm waiting for you to give me direction so I know what to do. But if you don't make the decision, the work starts to back up for staff. And then, you know, Tammy and Jackie and your, you know, leadership team work really hard to put together your agendas and your plans for your meetings. And a lot of that happens with, you know, sequencing work that's happening outside of City Hall with engineering contracts or other work that's underway. And so sequencing, okay, when do we need to have input from council, direction, and having those decisions? And so if you don't make decisions in the meetings, work starts to back up, agendas start to back up. It can be really challenging for staff. And so it's important to commit to making those decisions. That being said, like some of your decisions are going to be really straightforward. Some are going to be a little bit more challenging. And some, it might feel like the temptation to be like, well, we just need a little bit more information. And so that's where it goes back to trying to be as prepared and asking those questions in advance so staff can get you that information that you need to be able to make those decisions as much as you can. Of course, sometimes, you know, the way that the dialogue goes, it's quite possible, okay, there's more information that is needed, and that's the decision that's made in the meeting. But where we've seen this come up is like sometimes council's like, it's hard to make a decision and they're just asking for more and more information at each meeting. And then, so then staff's like waiting, all right, I'm gonna get you this information. And like, okay, this is really great, but actually we need more information. What about this? What about that? And we've seen it in organizations where it's like, you know, council's asking staff to, you know, bring them a rock. So they have to look at the rock. Like, oh, this is great. I need another rock. Like, so, okay. And so then the staff works together. They, you know, bring another rock to council and they look at it like, this is great. I need another one. I need another one. And it's like, it's really challenging to know, like, when, at what point do you agree as a group to have as much information as I'm going to have to be able to make this decision? It's never going to be easy, but setting an expectation around what that might look like. So, make decisions. All right. What
I think our council does a good job at that. Yeah, I can't remember a time when we've had to keep carrying something over and coming back and coming back.
That is wonderful. There's another community that that we've worked with that had a really contentious issue come up in their council retreat last year, and we touch base with them in the fall and say, how are things going? What's going on? Like, oh, we're still dealing with this issue. If council will not let it go, we've made a decision. Council voted on it, and then the people that were in the minority just could not let it go. And it's been so challenging because it's caused a backlog of work for the organization to be able to move forward on the other goals. So really happy to hear that that's not happening in Gladstone.
Because we value well-informed decisions, sometimes, especially in land use planning situations, the public who opposes something that a city is considering uses that notion of, we need more information, we need to hear from more people, we can't do this right now. It's a technique for stopping the process. You've probably encountered that. And so I think because of the good partnership we have in this city and the ability for new counselors, you'll see there is a council agenda, a workbook that kind of looks ahead and knows that we have to do X in March in order to do Y in April and Z in May. And that helps this process of doing the necessary steps to reaching decisions. And very rarely does anything come before the council that hasn't been kind of fully vetted and prepared for us. And with whatever questions we have, worked through. So that is a credit to our staff. And I feel sorry for the cities where, sometimes for a variety of reasons, you get those hiccups in there. I mean, we've seen it here in the past, but for right now, we're doing well.
That's good. All right. What about expectations of staff? Council, what are your expectations of staff and then to support this partnership? What do you need from staff? Yeah. Yeah. So like unbiased, neutral advice. Yeah, they've got the technical expertise, but it's really important that their input remains neutral because they don't get to make you guys don't get to make the decisions. That's up to council. All right, someone help me out. Neutral is all. Do you guys ever have a word that's like really hard? Thank you. EU. Thank you. That's the word that's like, someone's like restaurant.
Yeah.
That one always gets me.
And you know it's wrong when you see it wrong.
I know. I'm like, I don't want
to put first.
I don't want to give out my whiteout. Yeah. So it's really important to have unbiased, neutral advice so that council can trust that they're getting, timely information. The topics have been well researched. There's, all of the various options have been explored and then that information has been communicated back to council so they can do their job to make the decision. Yeah. It's a really important one. Thank you. What other expectations of staff? What staff need to do?
Honest feedback.
Okay. Tell me about that. What does that mean?
Observing what goes on in a meeting, saying, based on experience, it might have been better if this had happened instead, or if you had handled this in a different way. That may apply more to me because I'm more in a, convening and running the meeting situation. But I always appreciate getting good feedback that is constructive and helps me do better the next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that ties into, I'm going to write this down too, is just having open communication, like clear and open communication. So being able to provide that technical expertise, making sure that council has what they need to be prepared. So like you said, a lot of work goes into all of the council packet materials. And so being able to have that clear and open communication about if there is a challenge that you run into in a project, or there is a challenge in the community, being open and honest about what that is, the better information that council receives from staff, the better outcome they can have by making a decision that's going to be really targeted and focused and helpful for the city. Anything else from staff? What council needs from staff? Or what expectations of staff that you might have of yourselves in this partnership?
I noticed that when we have members of the public come and participate in meetings, rather than respond to them ourselves, the expectation is that staff will provide the answers to their questions and information that helps them with their concerns. And I, for one, greatly appreciate that. I don't want to use the phrase run interference for us, but it's a little bit of that.
Yeah, and community. Great. Anything that we're missing from staff?
The materials we submit need to be readable or not, not too much jargon. Easily decipherable.
Yeah.
Staff also needs to be prepared.
their staff reports, that everything's been researched, it's clear. Kind of ties in with being prepared and communication. Also prepared to answer any questions.
Or any questions. Sometimes the questions are a little tricky. So maybe not any questions.
Any questions.
Reasonable questions.
Reasonable questions. Answering your questions to the best of your ability. In the moment with the information that you have.
Yes.
Always within like, I can get more information to you. And that just speaks to trying to get the questions in advance. So staff, they're not miracle workers. You guys have a lot of expertise. But there's only so many levers that you can pull in the middle of the council meeting to be able to get that information. So, all right. Any questions about this? Does this feel like something that you guys can agree to and work together on? I know that you've got a great team in Gladstone. So it's always just a good reminder about what the rules are. And so speaking of partnership, before we head over to dinner, I know we're just a little bit over on our agenda. The last thing I want to do will be consider it your ticket to dinner. So you guys do have the benefit of having a really strong partnership here in Gladstone, and the city and this team have accomplished a lot of really great things over the past couple of years since we've been here. I really enjoyed reading the report that staff put together with like pictures, and it's just a really lovely report out to the community, sharing what you've been working on and how you've been moving the needle forward on your goals. And so I know a lot of you are aware of, like, you've already read the report, or you know a lot of what the city has been working on and what this team has been working on. So when we think about accomplishments, I want to offer up an opportunity to do one of two things. So perhaps there's a city accomplishment that you're particularly proud of that you want to highlight, or it's an opportunity to express gratitude to a particular project that was really personally meaningful to you, or to a person on the team that made that happen. And so before you go and get your pizza, is the pizza here?
It is here.
Okay, perfect. All right. What I'd like you to do is on your sticky note, so just try to like write big again, kind of like the way we did on the word of the year. Write down one thing that either you're really proud of an accomplishment of the last like 1 to 2 years, or it's an opportunity, like I said, to express gratitude for a particular project or a particular individual. So what I'd like you to do is write that on this, and then when you're done, we'll put them up on the board, and then we'll go have some pizza. So we'll get ready for our next. When you're done, let me know, and then we can share them with the group. Keeper, you already done. Okay. What do you have? Culture. Tell me about your culture. Oh, yeah. You're not gonna get on that easy. It's not the word of the year. What?
No, we over the years it's taken over 5 years, but people are on the same page, and I have proof of it just based on a project I did back to it. It's about the community. Statements of individual officers that voted up for it. One of the my ask was, what does policing look like in the community? So 1 to 2 sentences on the whiteboard. And I came back and really started writing down.
That's really cool. Good. Yeah, and it's like the culture is like a long game too. So yeah.
You're just hungry.
I am.
But
it was good.
Parking reform.
Oh,
the
yeah.
council made it really easy on me. We've had nice discussions about it, talked about what was required, talked about what the goals for the city were, and then really swiftly and seamlessly got through the hearings on it. So I really, because that's not the case in a lot of cities. All right. There's been a lot of upgrades.
They're always developed.
And a lot of work has been.
I was kind of selfish. Jackie and staff for hiring me, for the trust and the opportunity. So thank you.
I'm sure clearly everyone's very excited that you're here.
Handwriting horrible. But yeah, I many things. I guess the attention to pedestrian safety. Even though I'm not sure safety is the right word, meaning free from harm, but that's a whole other story. And so sincerely, Chief Schmerber, for your efforts with the Traffic Safety Board over the years, and your stepping in as chief to go to those meetings, and just an amazing thing for our city. So I greatly appreciate your efforts and what they've done.
I had a big thank you and great job from Michelle for managing and moving the community center forward, having cultural events and partnering with our other community-based organizations. Mine's much longer.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's really exciting.
Mine is gratitude to the community for voting for the new public works facility and trusting us to be practical, functional, and economical with that project.
Yeah, like the culture is like along, you feel a little bit of trust for the community.
And I want to say thank you to Marcy for connecting city government to local business.
We would just say teamwork. And basically, we have as you say, we have a really excellent team here. I've worked with a lot of very dysfunctional teams, and it's been a pleasure working here with the function that we do have with staff and then with council also.
Yeah, I agree. This whole process of planning this retreat has been so smooth, and the way Jackie's put things together and staff, it's just like I've been anticipating, looking forward to this retreat. For that reason, just really excited to work with this team.
They're not all around.
No.
I apologize for running out. I have a sick cat at home, so I bet. I just came in on this, so it sounds like we're saying what we're thankful for. The library. So wonderful, yeah.
So I said council relationships. So I think it's no secret that the city struggled for many, many years in sort of the council relationship with each other, with staff, with community. And I feel like the last 2 years, this council has been amazing, and they don't always agree, but they still get along, and they've really, you know, as all these other projects demonstrate, they've really done the work, and so I'm thankful for them because it makes my Tuesday nights a lot better.
That's great. Thank you. Robert.
I put down Jack Betts for future and succession planning within the city. Appreciate all the efforts going into looking ahead, not just focusing on the moment, but looking ahead at what the city will be.
I have two. I hope that's okay.
That's okay.
Okay, they're equally good. I'm really proud of and impressed with the revitalization progress downtown. I got to come in after the wheels already kind of started, but it makes me look good. Jackie really set the stage for me to really come in and look really great. And so, you know, the new library is beautiful. The Arlington tap room coming in, empty lot sold, and I like to think I have a little piece or part of some of those things, which is exciting. And then also snowflakes. Snowflakes that are finally working.
Oh, do you guys have like lighted snowflakes? Oh, I love that.
There's a story behind that.
Yeah. You know, it's like the little things that make a big difference, you know. And you're like, actually, that wasn't a little thing, it was a big thing.
I put down tackling the unexpected professionally and financially, because I think if we think back from the last year, we had a lot of little unexpected things that came up. Large water breaks. We had to hire a department head. There was a lot of small things, and in a city that runs a budget as tight as ours, that we had the funding and the professionalism to get those things done and not let them be a huge pothole in our roads. I think that that speaks volumes to our staff.
I think community events, because it's as a whole, as the community, it's in every department, it's with the council, it's with the community center. And I feel like it's a really important part of Gladstone and how we're growing that. And it really just, it covers the whole community and every department really in the community, because everybody contributes to it, and we're just super thankful for it.
Our last one. So it kind of echoes what I've been hearing, but staff recruitments, we've done so many in the last few years, and with the department heads, the council's been right there to hear our reasoning why and to let us work through our list of expectations, and many of them, past and present, have participated in the process. I really appreciate that. But approving the budget and putting the extra positions in has made a tremendous difference in the last year or so. And I think it's only going to get better.
Well, thank you everyone for sharing this. Like, everyone just do a round of applause. A lot. And I'm excited for the next phase about setting and refining the goals. So I don't want to keep you away from your pizza any longer. So it's just a hair after 5:30. So we'll pick it up like at 6:03. And so Tammy will direct you to where you need to go.
We're gonna pick back up to we gotta keep on our agenda. Pick back up. So what we're gonna move into next is, so we started at the break. Right before the break, we started our environmental scan of thinking about accomplishments or ways to express gratitude. So we're gonna continue that in the environmental scan portion of our agenda by building out a context map together. And so when we think about the outcome of building this shared understanding of the current environment, the context map is a really valuable piece in that, because you've got various people in the room of time that you've spent in Gladstone, different perspectives that you bring, and speaking to that staff expertise of different areas of passion, of interest, just where all of the different pieces intersect. So what we're going to be doing is building out this context map, which I will orient you to in a moment. But really the idea is that, when we're thinking about goals, and think about what do you want to accomplish into the future, it's really important to get a current scan of the environment, like what's happening right now in did I say Gresham earlier, or did I say Gladstone? I was thinking Gladstone. Okay, that's what I thought. But then I heard that Silas was from Gresham, and I also worked in Gresham. And so you ever have those things where you're like, did I say the wrong thing? And I want you guys to be like, what is she thinking? So anyway, we'll have to talk about that at some point. So anyway, so the what's the context in Gladstone? And so thinking about, what's happening in the community, what is the community, what are they caring about? What are they noticing? What are the trends or things? So trends are things that have a direction. So something's going up, something's going down, or you could have factors of things that are just happening. So political factors, technology factors, things that come up with technology a lot, like thinking if this might, be more relevant, like with the body-worn cameras. So the police department's use of technology, but technology shows up in local government in all sorts of ways. And so thinking about kind of what's coming online, if you excuse my silly pun, but like thinking about like what's into the future and what's currently happening in technology that we should be aware of, and how might we take advantage of that, or just be aware of that when we're thinking about what we want to accomplish into the future. So we cover technology factors, things that are happening in the community. It's also tied to with economic climate. So the climate's always shifting and changing. And thinking about how does inflation play a role into the work that we do, or the cost of goods and services, and how is that affecting the community, or the ability to get to attract and retain staff in different climates. So economic climate plays a role, political factors. So this is the local government level, but you've got a lot of regulations and mandates and requirements that come down either federally or from at the state level, and they really impact what you're able to do. Requires you the things that you absolutely have to do. Also how you do those. So Heather brought up CPEC, so the climate friendly and equitable communities, and like the impacts on parking, like that's a huge political factor. There's lots of those to unpack that impact what the current environment is in Gladstone. And then over here on the map, organizational trends and needs. So this would be a section of anything that's going on within the organization that we need to be aware of. So any sort of trends or needs can be captured there. And then we always leave a small area over here for uncertainties. So there's always things that you can't plan for or you can't control, or things that would totally throw all of this work off, or stop you in your tracks. And so it's good, we can't necessarily control for all of those things, but it's good to be aware of them and kind of keep them in the atmosphere as we're thinking about goals and goal refinement. So and then orange, which is where I want to start, is thinking about the work that's currently underway. And that's, in the pipeline, so to speak. So things that staff are planning to do based on, previous guidance or policy direction that council has provided, and then work that's underway. And so we can kind of give you a lay of the land of all of the work that staff's been doing and that they're continuing to do. And then my thought is that we can start here, and then we can have a conversation and continue to build out the context map for the environmental space. Any questions about categories or what might go in those categories for the exercise in general? All right, should we get started? We can get started with work underway. So I thought a nice way of doing this is that, so 2 years ago, Jackie provided a state of the city, which was totally informative, and it was really great. And we were thinking it might be fun this go around the room for the department heads to share a little bit about what you've been working on and what you can think, what any sort of work that's underway that you're going to be continuing. So thinking about things that are going to be taking up staff capacity and resources currently that are ongoing, and then kind of things that are out on the horizon, things that you will need to be required to have happen, or the different opportunities that exist that you'd like council to be aware of.
So I think how we kind of prepared for this is we have the year-end report, and we spent some time going through what was completed, but what's ongoing, which in our mind is work underway in the pipeline. So if we're looking at this from the last goals, but see, then I don't want to mix that with what you're trying to do tomorrow with 2023 goal updates. Mm-hmm. So how would you like us to extract?
I think it's just a good picture of thinking about like what's happening right now, and so like what has already been committed or that's already taking resources and time and energy.
Okay, so
does that help?
Marcy, do you want to talk about the economic development projects?
Yeah. Okay. So for economic development, I'm working on obviously continuing to support downtown businesses, especially all businesses, but specifically downtown businesses through continuing to grow our Main Street programs through Oregon Main Street. That's been a big one, and we have opportunities to go from one tier to a more a tier that's a little bit more involved, which can have benefits. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, it is. And the other thing that I've been working on has been the regional flexible funds allocation for the redevelopment or the reconstruction, or sorry, the construction of the trolley trail bridge as a bike head connection between downtown Gladstone and downtown Oregon City. I'm really excited to have urban renewal in place, help support our businesses downtown, and the biggest focus will be this kind of ongoing and in the pipeline would be the revitalization of our downtown district.
Ultimately, that means doing the final streetscape design of Portland Avenue and also engineering the infrastructure that needs to go underneath it. That's the specific focus for the downtown revitalization plan next phase.
Great, thank you. What do you think, Jackie? Makes sense in terms of sequencing.
Everyone talk about, yes, climate friendly.
Yes,
So for planning.
well, but we call it the town center. So in Metro, we are adopting a town center designation that will serve as our climate friendly area. So that is the last piece of the work that's funded by the grant from the state. So we're in the process of our anti-displacement work is underway right now with our sub-consultant, and we'll be working on the implementation strategies, which we do have to have a few of to finish out the project.
And that's new information that we found out since the last time Planning Commission and City Council met. A question came up as whether or not we have to actually implement anything, and we do by June 30th.
And does everybody know what CPAC means? Does anybody not know? Just sometimes acronyms, just want to make sure.
Well, it's climate friendly and equitable communities. It's rulemaking that the state put in place to try to designate areas in metro cities that are in metropolitan areas so that we reduce reliance on single trip automobile, so that we're increasing other ways people get around and bringing services, homes, and businesses closer together so that you don't have to drive as far to get to your daily tasks.
Yep, tourism, we're continuing implementing the branding, using the tourism strategy guide, doing branding, wayfinding. We've been discussing things to implement things from the guide, such as potentially the mural crosswalk at Dartmouth.
Is it a mural
It's a
crosswalk?
crosswalk, yeah. It's a placemaking project.
Cool.
So continuing to kind of follow that guide, not kind of, but follow that guide and implement the strategies that you all put into place for us.
Okay, so next, move on to infrastructure. I think one of the big accomplishments this year was completing that phase 1 of the inflow and infiltration project that we've been mandated by DEQ. Next phase, Silas?
Been in one meeting in my 2 weeks that I've been here, and we are definitely looking to that next phase with the INI project. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but I think it's the West Basin.
Yeah.
So that'll be probably in the Portland Avenue, this area over here. I'm not that familiar with town yet.
You said West Basin?
Yes.
Yes,
West Basin.
West Basin. It's approximately a $16 million project, but the city does not have all the funds for that. And so Silas is working with our city engineer to determine what we do have in the budget, keeping in mind that West also will reimburse us for a third of this project as well. Right now, Kathy, I think we're looking at about $400,000 to $500,000 in the next fiscal year, next 2 fiscal years. I think that's what we have budgeted for that. Yes. So as far as infrastructure, that's also ongoing in the pipe.
And Jackie, just to clarify, you mentioned 16 million, and then you said 400,000 or 500,000, which doesn't sound anywhere close. That would just be for the engineering portion of a $16 million project, or, okay.
Yeah, and the other thing too is right now that we're done with the first phase, we have flow monitoring testing going on for 3 months.
Right.
We're very optimistic that when we get the results of that we're going to find that we probably fixed 80% of our deficiencies in the system. So we may never have to get to the $16 million project.
Thank you. That clarifies things.
More infrastructure is the second phase of the Oak Lodge service area. That's per our intergovernmental agreement with them. And I believe we have until 2027 to complete those projects. So we'll start the next phase of that. So you'll get 2 phases in the next 2 years. Thanks, Silas. You want to add to that one?
I'm not 100% up to speed on that at this point, so no, I
Not after 2 weeks.
don't. I'm trying.
No, he's doing phenomenal. And then we've got the streets pavement management. The city council adopted a policy for the next 5 years. So we know that for the next 2 years. And Silas did share something regarding ADA that I think is important for you to share the requirements.
Yeah, so I do know that anytime you start doing full replacement to a certain footage or lane miles, you then it triggers a statute. I'm not exactly sure what the statute is, but it triggers a statute where you have to address all ADA within that zone. So the price could be going up significantly. I think we're planning on doing a slurry seal again this phase. We'll be again using contract from Hillsborough. There's a lot of local areas. Hillsborough kind of leads it up for smaller entities. They get the contract ready, and then we get set price, and we use that contractor that comes up from Southern California and does all the slurry seals in the metropolitan area, I'll call it. That also, depending on how much you get into it, can trigger ADA, but at this time, I think we're gonna be okay just getting some slurry seal done and keeping some of that at the index that it is right now. But yes, we start talking about doing full grinds and then overlays, there could potentially be that ADA requirement, which means if not sidewalks, you may have to put sidewalks. If they're existing sidewalks, you'll have to address for sure the ramps. And that's a lot of engineering, a lot of design drawing, a lot of field work that happens to fit it into existing grades and existing property lines and whatnot. So I have a little bit of experience with that with Gresham. They ended up developing a full team just for concrete because of it. Because they did the same thing as Gladstone, a 5-year process. And it quickly. So they've got their own team, almost the size of all of public works here. So.
So we may not be able to do it as much as we have been if we've got to add in the ADA components of the sidewalks for that. So more to come with that. Happy financial forecasting software.
We're working on that. We're working on the capital improvement plan right now. With the transition of Silas coming in, we've got a bit of a bump in the road, but we'll get through that also. And then as far as once we have a little more handle on what our capital needs are going to be, forecasting those out, then we'll be able to start working on funding of these. And there'll be a lot of funded and unfunded, because needless to say, we can say we would love to have this grant funded, but we don't have guarantees. So that's where we are with that. Going into a budget year, so needless to say that it'll all meld together.
Jackie, I had one more project that's starting to be developed. That's the nature park, paved loop trail, and the restroom and shelter. That was part of the meeting I had with Cecil. It's the beginning stages of surveying.
We have funding for those 2 projects.
We'll
be coming to council at their next meeting to get a project manager on board through 3J Consulting so that person can manage both of those projects, give Silas time to get adjusted to the operations of the facility. Molly Trail Bridge.
Yep, so we're waiting on, we did the refinement of the application for the regional flexible funds, and we are now in a waiting pattern until, I just sent you the messages, May or June, that I believe that they'll be letting us know projects that were funded, but I feel pretty hopeful. I think we have a really strong application.
And it was for about $8.7
million. And so we have a $998,000 plus
match. So if we get that congratulations letter, we've got to come up with $1 million in match funds. So next week, there's 5 of you going to the Capitol building for City Day. And I'm bringing a flyer to share with Senator Meek and Representative Hartman. We're meeting with both of them because we would like them to help with the match if we're funded federally for the close to $10 million.
And is that considered a Gladstone only project or a Gladstone Oregon City project?
It's a Gladstone only, but it has no financial support from Oregon City, but they will support the project. Kind of like my neighbor that let me fix my fence in the backyard but didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
Same thing.
We've been.
Yeah.
All right, what other updates from, we're working their way from staff?
John, police department.
Kind of a big list. Right now, we continued our police department community academy. It didn't go last year. We're trying again this year, but right now we don't have a lot of applications. I'm not holding my breath. Deadline. So if we don't get up to 10 applicants, we're not going to be able to accomplish. It's not feasible to do. But however, the officers all got their everything put together, lessons plans and everything. So they're excited about it. So we'll see. February 1 is the deadline. We continue to work on our internal analytical tracking system called Benchmark. And so we're starting to expand that. That will always be really track use of force, any type of hiring, training, etc. So it's a paperless system. It also provides analytics for us when we do activities. So we'll just hit a button and it all comes out. So it's really nice and easy for us to do. Strategic planning session is in the works that we're going to do with the community. I believe we set it for May of 25. I'd like to make sure we're all on the same page as what we're doing internally and our philosophy. Does that meet the community's expectations and what they want to do? So we'll be advertising for that soon, pushing that out. And then we're focusing on a cadet program. So we started our new cadet program that's going to kick off. We haven't released any of the cadet names. We started small with 4. They're going to go through their academy, which I believe is a 12-week academy. And it's 1 day a week for 12 weeks. And it's really just focusing on the basic functions. All the kids are related to Gladstone High School. We didn't want to take anybody outside of Gladstone. Let's start with Gladstone kids. Although one attends Gladstone High School, lives in Oregon City. So, but the other 3 are Gladstone. We have a senior, 2 juniors, and a sophomore. So 2 males, 2 females, and going that route. So they're super excited. We got to meet them and pretty cool kids. They're really cool kids. So this is really going to kickstart continued engagement with our youth and our community. So with our SRO and everything else. I truly believe if we have strong, healthy youth, we're going to have a good community. That goes away, we're going to be in trouble. So we're going to always stay engaged with you. We're developing a mental health service coordinator serving Gladstone. That's in the works. Council approved the use of funds for that. So we continue to work hard on that and get that afterwards. Hopefully we'll see somebody in springtime on board with the hiring process. We're focused on officer wellness programs. You have to follow law enforcement for well. Police officers are different than we were when I was hired in 1988. And there's a lot of things that we didn't do, probably should have done. However, we're pushing forward with the wellness programs, peer support, and all that. We have that engaged in it. So we're still working strong on that. And then always succession, hiring, and retention. That's always going to be a goal. That's why my words deliver. It's really focusing on them. I truly believe if we take care of our employees, we take care of our police officers, they will take care of the community. Because the culture is going to be right, and if we put that's the focus on that. And then, of course, technology, and we'll talk about technology, but we're always gonna focus on technology. How can we get better? What can we do? Benchmarks, a prime example, body worn cameras, another example. There's more that we're looking at down in the future to ensure that when we have to deploy something, we're gonna be right the first time, because we don't typically get second chances. We don't get out once. So we want to be right the first time. So those are the updates that we're doing.
As far as communications and engagement, one that is still ongoing is we are participating in the Clackamas County Research Justice Study. That report was released this year. Next week, they're having a follow-on meeting to talk about the action items for that. Anything, Michelle, you want to?
We're just, I have all the fun stuff, right? We're just continuing with all our multi-generational services, events, programs, community outreach, resources for the community. We're working on a grant right now, or we applied for a grant and we're hoping to get that for ADA accessible doors. I guess a big one that we're in the works I'm working on is community programming. So getting that all, getting community feedback and figuring out what kind of classes and programs that our community wants to see at the center, what kind of events. So working on that. Yeah.
And actually, I don't want to overshare because the other projects we know about, I think, are more for, what we have to do. These are the ones that are in the pipeline or carryover, but we have many more that we know we have to do. And I don't know if you want those tomorrow.
I think those should come up when we in the discussions around proposals for refinements to existing goals or any sort of new goals. So it's an opportunity for staff. So thinking about your role in those in the work tomorrow is providing these are the things that are coming up for council consideration. Okay. Yeah. All right. Do we feel like we've captured this here? You guys want to start building out the rest of our map? Or do you want to? Where do you want to start? Sometimes it feels a little bit like Jeopardy. Like where do you want to start? But sometimes it's nice to start in economic climate or organizational trends or political factors.
I think the economic climate right now, with what's going on nationally, we don't know what's going to happen with inflation. And from a financial standpoint, we don't know about cost of living increases for employees, things of that nature. So that is on our radar.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to be affected, but it will be affected. We just don't know. We just don't know how yet. Yeah. What about potential impacts with infrastructure projects or just city finances in general?
We have normally been going on a pay-as-you-go basis, taking advantage of, say, of any grants that are out there, and we have the staff and capabilities to apply and or work on those. As far as financing, we finance this facility, the Police Department of Public Works, but we have a very low debt ratio theoretically as far as, and our debt will be paid off very quickly, which has basically been the focus that we've gone forward with. So, until we get a little bit better idea on the upcoming economic situation in the country, how that will affect us could be significant, could be not much. Unfortunately, with Gladstone being landlocked, we're very limited in the growth of our revenues. And so we have to work with what, we basically have. As far as new revenue streams, anything that would present itself, we would jump on.
And with one item that I know I need to talk to you about tomorrow, it will have an economic impact to the citizens of Gladstone. You combine that with what the school district is also trying to have with the school bond and whatever Metro decides to do. So all of those economic impacts will affect Gladstone residents.
So just put ballot measures.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where do we want to capture that? Should we capture that in political factors or in under economic? What do you guys think? Okay, just both. You want to grab them? What do you guys think?
I'm looking at it from a financial standpoint.
Yeah. All right, so how do we want to capture it? So there's these potential bond measures. Are they for May? Are they November?
Ours would be November and one I think is May. So one in May, two in November that potentially we know about.
Okay. So can you tell me, can you tell me one more time?
School bond, right? School district bond.
Yeah.
In May.
Called GST bond or school bond. Yeah, it's fine.
Bond, okay. In May.
Metro Housing Services,
SHS. Okay.
November.
I know, you're helping me out in November. Okay.
And Clackamas Fire Services, merger. That was back there. Talked about.
And that one is
November.
It's economic impacts, but of course they're like politically driven too, so, and unknowns. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna capture those two. I'll just put them up there too. Anything else in broader economic climate? So we talked a little bit about like the city financial state, but what about just in general? Like, yeah.
I'm thinking about interest rates and financing and like private development and how we get system development charges and infrastructure built through private development projects, but that private funding is a little questionable right now for projects starting to get a little caution in the private development market.
Say environment cautious. Private funding.
Yeah, and just high interest rates right now. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's like the week of the inauguration, there's like a lot of changes, so. The potential changes in federal funding. There's anything we're missing here?
There are a lot of public utility rate increases that put pressure on consumers.
Okay.
And that affects, we depend on public utility rates for part of our operating income too.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do too. So sometimes you can see there's like connections that are made here. And so it's like, yeah, and it puts pressure and like all those ballot measures too. I mean, there are state constituency voting on them. So, but economic pressure on residents. Utility bills.
I'm glad our police and fire levies are in place through 2029.
Yeah. All right, since we're kind of moving, I feel like we're kind of naturally moving into community needs and trends. Why don't we build that out a little bit? What are your council staff? What are you guys seeing in terms of what's happening in Gladstone? What some trends or needs might be in the community that we should be thinking about when we're considering the goal refinement? Like what would be important?
I think that people we're on the plus side of coming back together after the pandemic, and I think people are more open to community events and things like that. And I think it's really important that right now that we keep the momentum and the capture of what we've built, and to even possibly make that bigger, and make sure that our community needs are met in a type space, whatever they need, whether that be classes, whether that be, continuing with our festivals and things like that. I just think that we have to have that, people have to have that, and to engage as many people as possible should be one of the most important things that we do as a council.
Absolutely. What else?
The chief said engaging RV on the community level to focus on.
Yeah, so like engaging youth, like she said, in the connection with the safe community. Continuing to invest and build connections. Other needs or trends and things happening in the community we should know?
Being with the traffic safety board for years and talking to people in the community about kind of their, I guess, expectations of getting around the cities. Quite simply, like pedestrian safety, especially for kids.
Yeah, you were talking about the ADA and the potential like additional like sidewalks and what's around town.
And to be clear, just, that I appreciate your point where there's that threshold where you need to do the ADA and the price gets incredible. I'm always kind of like a lower hanging fruit kind of guy of a lot of that stuff. Just to throw that out there, but I think the pedestrian needs are important, and a fair amount of crashes and property damage. Absolutely. Really connecting people to our open spaces, our parks.
Hey, you guys are doing a lot with parks. Other community needs or trends?
I'd add, just because it's the world I live in, the support of small businesses and their needs. From communication with them, what's happening in their area, to educational opportunities being shared with them, and then also just planning for how we will support them. Using best practices to support them during any infrastructure changes we might be doing in Portland Avenue specifically, and construction, kind of some sort of a plan in place to help support them during this time. So it's not easy for anybody. I live in Canby, and so we had 99 closed down, not closed down completely, but there's a lot of issues there with businesses, so being able to use that as an opportunity to work with and be partners with the small businesses.
Yeah, just trying to balance, like, we're making improvements, we also want to try to support the cities through that process, or not the cities, the businesses, so that they still can have their patrons and.
Mayor Hewitt, Bella talked about reducing social isolation in the community.
Yeah, I brought it up because of an article I read in the Atlantic and other things that I've read recently before that too, that talk about the same idea that I think coming out of the pandemic, people are spending even less time with other people now than they did when they were, required to be isolated. And too much time in front of Netflix, too much time getting takeout food, bringing it home instead of sharing it. And I think
Just described my life.
Mine too. As Council, we haven't been to a movie in 5.5 years. As Councilor Garlington said, those community connections, really, and it helps, I think, with the inner well-being, the health of a community. And if any place could have the kind of community events and spaces and, book groups and anything else that would bring people together, it's a small town like Gladstone. So we have the potential to really make an impact upon that.
Or that with the word invention.
Well,
For
because
social-
people just don't leave.
Yeah.
And I think, if we really dived into it with reading, there's a direct correlation with mental health there too, when people aren't getting out and interacting. I think it's really important.
I was telling Jackie years ago when I was doing church work for a short period, I worked as a singles ministry director in a very large church in San Diego. And we had lots of groups for single adults, young adults in their 20s, people my age at the time around their 40s, even seniors. And, getting together, going out for meals, having discussion groups, having book clubs, all of those kinds of things contributed to people engaging with other people. And that was a different time, I won't tell you how long ago it was, but, it's not the society we live in anymore. People just don't go out and connect the way they used to. And we could create a community where they do.
I think one of the plus sides to that when you say that too is that Gladstone is small enough that we touch our neighbors all the time. It's not Gresham, it's not Portland, where you could live an entire life in Portland and still not walk into a pocket of neighborhood. In Gladstone, that really doesn't happen. So we have that ability to reach out and really be community oriented and small group oriented. That we bring small groups together in order to make that a bigger space. And I think it's right now is the time. I think right now is, and that as a community or as a city, if we could drive things like that, people would pick up. And it speaks volumes about the kind of place that Gladstone wants to move into. Because our demographic, I've talked to a couple of people about how in the 34 years that I've lived in Gladstone, the demographic has changed huge, but I see it coming back around. The families with kids are moving back into our neighborhood and we need to really engage with them and make sure that this is a place they want to be. Kids, the youth, the older people, all of that, because there's a lot of families now where older people are living with their children and kind of people that maybe we need to touch with them as well.
On the opposite end of that, I would say that we still have community members who are part of underserved populations who are leaving Gladstone because they do not feel safe. We had youth loss of life because of not feeling welcome. We'll capture that and then let's fill out.
I've got one more on that front.
Yeah.
I know we're running out of space, but I think we're gonna have a looming safety crisis here this summer if we can't secure permanent funding for lifeguarding at High Rocks. I think that's gonna be a huge threat to the city if we have the same crowds recreating there that we do year over year, and we don't have the people down there to keep them safe. And Mark said that they're cutting off their funding, they can no longer provide that. And that was at no expense to us. And so we need to establish a path forward where we cannot have people recreating down there in an unsafe environment.
An important one. Okay. Let's talk about organizational trends and needs. I grabbed succession planning and hiring while Chief was talking about that as a priority and something you guys are working on. But what else is going on in the organization in terms of needs or trends that we should be thinking about as we're building out our current understanding of what's going on?
Losing 2 department heads.
Hence discovery and exploration. I'll start the recruitment for my position next month. And then for Kathy's position the month after that. So there will be a lot of change internally. Recruitment for both the positions I expect will be difficult, but working with Kathy, we were able to design a way that we can hire both positions full-time on site, which is what this organization needs. Because internal COG has to have the direction of a finance expert. And the organization also needs someone who's well versed in HR that can continue working on the succession planning and filling some of the vacant positions, as well as, depending on what the goal setting nets out, any new positions in the future. And add to that, both collective bargaining agreements are open for negotiation.
So that's 2. Which ones are those?
Oh, that's for tomorrow. So don't write that down.
Well, I'm gonna write it. Which ones are they?
Oh, there's police and general.
Okay.
Bargaining.
Yes.
AFS. It ties into the economic climate and not knowing what the coal is going to do, and not knowing what the inflation.
I don't know if I got that acronym right, but yeah. Yeah, definitely a tie here. What else? You should be aware of. Those are specific ones.
One of the LOC's priorities was training and certification.
We're following
Public
that.
Works.
Okay.
And again, something that I've been talking about for over a year. We want to get our existing public works staff educated and certified in as many areas as possible.
Is the apprenticeship in public works only or other places?
I believe the way that the LOC initiative is that it's for public works, it'd be water and wastewater.
Yeah. Is that the training and certification for public
Yes.
works too? Okay.
Kind of a revitalization of what they used to do years ago, just like the mayor for longer than I want to remember. But there used to be standard, easily accessible training programs so that you always had a workforce that could get the certifications required to run your systems. And then that kind of died off. Those people stayed for a long time, but they've retired or they've been hired away by larger organizations that can offer them higher positions and perhaps higher wages. We need to get going.
With the recent opening of a new county library in our city, there may need to be a need for city, how should I express this? City connection to county, city services from county library. I guess I'll describe it that way. So that's.
So it's like a.
I don't think, it may not be an organizational thing so much.
Yeah, wasn't quite sure where to capture it. But
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Staff, are we missing anything in terms of organizational trends or needs?
I think housing should be on the community.
Housing?
I mean, just housing, if, that saying is all ages, wages, and stages, housing that can be approached by anyone who needs it. Not a Gladstone specific issue, but a property up there. Yeah.
So we need property. Yeah.
We need property. Yeah.
And Heather, do you know when our production strategy plan is supposed to be done? Is that a couple of years away?
I believe it's 2027, so 2 years.
So it's not an immediate thing, right?
Not immediate,
Okay.
but on the horizon. Something we'll be talking about this meeting next time.
I'm gonna capture this over here with the property. And can you say more about that, Jackie? Is it that property needs to be rezoned or just
No, if we don't have an inventory of property to develop to increase our property tax base, so we have to redevelop our middle housing. We have to grow up, not out.
And so, yeah.
grow up?
Which perhaps in theory could be counter to some folks in the community like want kind of more space and things like this, or I know there's like a kind of a push pull on that.
Yeah. I know that kind of needs to. I feel like there's a natural shift, you got housing too, into any sort of political factors that we can build out. Let's capture those before we move on. We talked a little bit about CFAC or housing.
Well, the governor has mandates, has set mandates for cities and state on their housing production.
Yes, a political factor. Yeah, last week there was a new slate of legislation regarding middle housing and stuff. So.
Yeah, so how will that be impacting Gladstone?
Well, unlike some cities that are resisting it, middle housing, because of the lack of space, development space, is one of the only ways that we can get more housing in Gladstone. An older single-family teardown could become a duplex or a fourplex. It would look the same size, but could still add more housing. So, if there are mandates involved, and mostly if the development funds aren't there, and it's not like anybody who owns a single family home now can just go to the bank and get a mortgage for an ADU. The finance thing is one of the stumbling blocks to have that happen.
Yeah, thinking about the connection there with let's see, where's my interest rates? Yeah. Connect with housing too.
Yeah.
It connects in with the CFAC parking because we decided to follow the fair parking policy that allows us to maintain some parking requirements for middle housing that are not in exception areas, so that we could address some of the concerns of existing neighborhoods and the amount of parking that could
buffer with those upzoned parcels.
So is that making them more, like having this allow more, sorry, to have more parking?
Required to have parking, yeah, so the options were to not require any parking anywhere in the city or to do certain things in parts of the city, so we chose with certain things in parts of the city, so it could require middle housing in our less dense neighborhoods to require parking.
Other things happening, other political factors?
Threats to undocumented residents. I think that's a real uncertainty right now, and apparently, police departments in some cities of the country are having to deal with it. Jackie says you get updates on when federal things change and everybody, or events happen like fires. But my wife feeds me articles from the internet about cities who, seem to be targeted for removal of undocumented residents, and whether local police departments are going to be participating in that or not. I don't know if that will ever hit Gladstone at this level, but it's certainly a political factor that's part of our environment now.
We won't do that here locally in Gladstone. We follow the governor, the sanctuary state. We don't have the border issues in Oregon as much as they have in the other states around there. But John and I have had this conversation, and that is not the intent or purpose of our law enforcement.
No, it's, if I kind of think about it, there's after ORS involvement with enforcing immigration laws, federal immigration laws. It prevents us from doing so. And so for us right now, it's business as usual. And unless the state changes its laws, it's going to be business as usual, or there's some other rule. But we have such a heads up on that. There's certain things we can't do, or certain things we will do.
Yeah. And if I can piggyback on that, I think the other aspect of uncertainty is some of the changes that the administration is doing as far as like where they may be raised. So even if our police force won't be required to help out, they may be going into schools, they may be going into churches and other places and libraries where they haven't gone before, which may result in our police department getting called to the school and saying, wait a minute, there's these other police here, like, can you come out and help with that? Right. So even though we're not allowed to assist with the enforcement of immigration, I still think it could have a pretty big impact on police departments.
Yes. So yes, that is true. I just don't see it coming in Gladstone. Yeah, I just don't. But it could. The only way we would assist in enforcement of immigration is if the federal officers were calling for like code zero. Shots are fired. They need help. We go to make sure everything is safe. Everything's safe. That would be our job to assist. But it also puts us in that position, right?
Well, I just go back to Councilor Huckabee's comment about communities feeling unsafe and, perhaps not a strong sense of belonging. And I think whatever we can do to enhance their safety in this political climate is important.
I can tell you since Monday, I have had 2 Gladstone families reach out to me asking what's going to happen.
Good. It's a good conversation. I'm looking at our time. I'm just wondering if there's anything we want to add here before, I think then we can try to spend some time doing our full updates before we close out for tonight.
Another uncertainty is federal funding. That's also, I think, a political. Because there already have been actions taken to eliminate certain supports for infrastructure for electrical vehicles that have impacted some cities in our area already.
Anything else we want to capture before we go into goal updates?
The only thing I'd add to that is sort of piggybacking on what we were just talking about is I do think with everything going on, you may see an increase in protest again and counter protest, and that could also then affect city resources like it did. Yeah,
Thanks, Chad.
Way to jinx it. Appreciate you.
True, that's the problem.
I have one more under general uncertainties, and that's kind of weather and fires, super storms, and strike.
Yeah, all the infrastructure.
That's what we're doing the big one. The earthquake. You know, if we're talking uncertainty.
Andrew, I told you, we all be gone.
I know that's your take on it. I've actually reflected on that a lot. I'm pretty sure I didn't sleep so well last
Okay.
We're on that one.
All right, so as you guys can see,
We need to lighten the mood.
as you can see, there's there's lots of different pieces of the puzzle, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time to it can kind of take a bit of time to start and get the conversation going, but then it can be a challenging exercise to kind of end, because there's always more you can add. There's always more you can add to your map, and so
Just we always say that what happens at the national level affects us locally, whether it's supposed to or not, because people live here in the community.
right.
That's to your point about our right.
Yeah, and all things uncertainty. I mean, there's countless executive orders and signed on Monday night, and so it's kind of the news outlets are trying to slowly unraveling and trying to make sense of what do all of these things mean, and what are the potential impacts, and so there's a lot yet to be seen about all of the changes that are going to take place with the new administration. Well, I'm going to move this over to the wall, and then we're going to do our goal updates. And so I'll kind of share a little bit of overview about the process, so what you can expect. So with the goal refinement process, what you want to do is you start by, considering the context. And so part of that is doing this environmental scan, getting a sense of the work underway and what's in the pipeline for staff, and also building out your environmental scan. But then also a big part of considering the context is understanding the current status of the work and the current status of your goals. And so that's going to lay some groundwork for letting us know where we need to make those refinements. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the current list of goals. And like I said, we're not going to talk about what refinements need to be made right now. But we'll just flag them for refinement, because we'll be able to have plenty of time to do that tomorrow. But we want to get a sense of, okay, which ones are done, complete, you can check off the list, which ones are ongoing, and then which ones do we want to flag. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Is that preferred? We can do that. Those are really nice portraits. Nothing surprises me.
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty
All right.
I think it's funny.
I wouldn't have done it.
All right.
It's easier to
So,
identify
Jackie, do they have
schools that have larger populations of the targeted people outside of Gladstone.
Yeah.
But,
Okay. So you guys have in your packets, I'm not sure what page.
Then you don't have a.
Tammy might be able to refer to you which page exactly of our updates. But
Sorry, I brought.
essentially, staff has put in a lot. All right. Hold on. Let's bring it back. We'll bring it back in. Because we only have 20 more minutes. So we want to see how far we can get. But so staff has prepared a really thoughtful goal update and detailed updates on all of the goals. It's in your packet. And so hopefully we're able to take a look at that. But if not, we're going to go through them one by one, and then we'll be able to provide that quick update on, okay, is it ongoing? Has the work been completed and we can remove it? Is it maybe it's no longer relevant, or something, maybe something we're going to change, or maybe it needs council direction, it needs refinement. So we'll go through the list. And so the first one I had was the goal area was economic development. that a good point?
Yeah,
We
so
start there?
number one's done, we hired Marcy.
Okay. All right. Okay, so one is done.
One is done.
Okay. What about two, which is the enhanced partnership with Clackamas County Economic Development? That one's two is ongoing? Okay. Okay, what about three?
Three I have flagged for needs refinement from council. That's the annexation analysis.
This is, to clarify, very small scale annexation, right? Like individual annexation, or we're not looking
I
at it?
believe when this was put up here, there was a former counselor that wanted us to do an annexation analysis to bring in lots of properties in the industrial area. And I'm not sure that that is something that would benefit Gladstone to spend money and time on doing an analysis. Because annexations typically are not city going out and grabbing property, but when people want to be annexed into the city. So in my opinion, this should go away, but for now I just put that it needs refinement from the council.
Sounds good.
Urban
Thanks.
renewal, we did complete that expansion.
All right, so do you think, so it says urban renewal refinement opportunities to include Portland Avenue, so that's, is that complete? Can we?
That piece of it is complete, yes.
Okay, do we feel like it needs additional refinement, like for next steps, or?
No, because we
Okay.
already brought in the properties. We're working with the Department of Revenue. That piece is done,
The projects haven't been done.
correct, but actually expanding the boundary hours.
Okay,
Number 5 is ongoing,
so that's the Main Street.
Main Street,
Main Street.
and we'll also be pulling out something from there to include in a new goal, which is potential future uses of the former Gladstone Library. So that will become a new goal. Last sentence under Main Street Road.
Okay, so maybe refinement around library?
Yes, the council will need to make a decision on what they want to do with that property.
Okay, so I'm gonna say.
5A, old library.
Okay. I just want to make sure we capture that, but I know it's on everyone's radar, so I know it's not gonna be forgotten. Library old site. All right, 6, which is the CFAC.
Yeah, I think Heather, you have a timeline to complete by June 30th.
Yes, the parking piece is complete and the town center portion will be complete by June 30th of this year.
Okay, so do you guys feel like that can be removed from the list, or should it stay on the list?
It should stay on.
Should stay on.
Stay ongoing, okay,
Still another half a year.
yeah. Of resources and staff time, okay, all right. And then after that, it's research funding opportunities to implement elements from the downtown revitalization plan with Portland Avenue Street improvements.
I've got ongoing because of the next piece of that is to complete the final streets design and infrastructure projects.
Okay, so is that one ongoing? Or does it, do you feel like it needs refinement? Does council feel like it needs to refinement, or? do
It's
you need to show-
ongoing. It's going to
Okay.
start in
Oh,
the
okay.
pipeline.
So that one's ongoing.
Number 8 is ongoing.
Eight is implement elements of the Gladstone brand in tourism.
Yes.
All right, and that's all of them for economic development.
As the mayor mentioned, Marcy's done an exceptional job, you know, almost 2 years that we've been here now. Goal number 2 is infrastructure.
Infrastructure, okay.
Number 1 is a big complete, that's great.
Okay, and then let's tell, just for the, keeping everybody, and me too, I'll selfishly, tell me what they are, too.
Inflow and infiltration infrastructure project.
Okay, so inflow, infiltration, and that's complete?
Complete,
All right.
but we have another phase, but that could be tomorrow.
Does
I
it
don't
need
know.
refinement? Should we mark it for refinement then?
Market or refine.
Okay. Okay, and then number 2?
Capital improvement projects in the Oak Lodge service area. Refinement.
Fine.
Number 3, streets pavement management.
What are we thinking here?
Refinement.
Okay.
Or ongoing. I don't know which word you want to use, but
Well, do you feel like staff has clarity on what needs to happen and
yes,
it's just
so it's
ongoing?
ongoing.
Okay,
Same with number 2 then, sorry.
this is, it's just ongoing. So
1,
the
2,
work
and
is,
3 are all
okay.
ongoing.
Yeah, so I guess like, you know, refinement would be like if we need additional clarity or additional direction, or but if it's like, the work is ongoing, we'll just kind of keep it moving. Okay. So it's not, this one's not a refinement, that's an
1, 2, and 3 are all ongoing.
okay.
It almost we're moving into phases though, as far as phases have been completed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's true. I mean, you have an opportunity if you wanted to be like more specific in the goal, like complete phase 2 of this project. You could do that, or you could just have it ongoing. It's, I mean, you can do it either way. I don't know if council has a preference.
Ongoing is fine. We
Yeah.
understand that progress is being made on each of these goals.
Are we gonna end up producing a document similar to this that defines it with this much detail?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
That's my
it'll,
evaluation.
the headings will be the same. The headings will be the same and the specifics, the phase 2 description will be different, so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and so that's just like, that's the point of the council retreat, is like to make sure that staff walks away with the clarity of like, okay, what's the direction of council setting it? So, but in this case, it sounds like we just want phase 2 and staff's gonna let us know what phase.
We don't,
what that looks like.
want our brand new public works director to think that the I&I project is complete. He
Yeah.
knows there's more to be done.
Okay, cool. All right, next one is the financial forecasting update of the software.
And that was ongoing.
Okay. Ongoing.
Number 5, Evergreen Storm Line, complete. Great job.
I'm gonna say complete with an exclamation point. Because we gotta celebrate those. All right, let's see, what's next?
82nd Drive Pump Station. Yeah, all of our projects have been on time and within budget too.
Is this one done also?
No, ongoing.
Some of them way under budget.
Yeah.
When is this one gonna be, is anticipated to be done?
It should be complete by the start of 2026.
Okay. And 7 is the trolley trail bridge.
Yes, and that is ongoing.
No additional refinement or direction on,
Just trying to get the funding.
okay. You guys are so organized. I can't, I'm like, feel like I'm slowing you down. Okay. Public Works Facility. Complete the Public Works Facility.
Done.
Yeah. Yay.
Number 9, unilateral flushing maintenance program. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Mm-hmm.
Refinement.
The unilateral flushing, okay.
Yeah.
I know, I was like, but I already had started. I know, you just like, I just barely missed it. Okay, so that means refinement.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. So then the next one is
You want to keep
communicate.
going?
Let's see. Do you guys want to see if you want to get one more? Or do you want to stop there and then we can talk about plans for tomorrow?
Yeah. Fine. Dog thing.
That way we have 10 minutes. Okay. All right. That sounds good. Well, and that was good. That went by really fast. And that's like you have 4 goal areas. So we have 2 more to cover in the morning. And so we'll be able to identify the updates for the rest of those. So the rest of the, so process, what we'll do tomorrow when we start, we'll just pick right back up where we left off and we'll go through the communications and engagement goals and the other ones. And then what I'm going to do, I'll circle where the ones need refinement. So it's really clear. And then we're going to break into small groups. And so we'll put you in small groups and that's your opportunity for council to talk. Each group has at least one other council member. So we'll talk between the 2 of you, but then also having information provided and context provided from staff too, in terms of how do these goals, these existing goals need to be refined? How do we need to add additional clarity or policy direction based on the environmental scan and all of those updates that we received tonight? So I'm thinking about what's happening in the community or what's already in the pipeline. So talking about those refinements. Also during that time in those small groups is your opportunity to think about any proposals for new items that you want to add to the list. And so what we'll do after we have some small group time to write down the proposals for refinements and the new items, we'll go through each of these areas that we've identified needing refinement and we'll have a group discussion in terms of what that refinement needs to be. And then we'll make sure that we get consensus or majority from council so that everyone on council is feeling good about moving forward. So we're not going to put a goal up on the list unless it has council consensus or majority to move forward. So we have to be really clear about that. And that's for any new items as well. So we'll go through and we'll make the refinements to the existing. We'll talk about any new items. Right now you have the 4 goal areas that might change depending on any sort of new items or things that come up for discussion. And so we'll leave that to the end to thinking about how any sorts of like the overarching like goal areas might need to change. But that's really going to be the bulk of tomorrow. So we'll come in, we'll update the rest of this list with the goal updates. We'll have this small time for small group discussion, and then we'll come back and the small groups will be able to share their proposals for their refinements, for the new items. We'll discuss it as a group, make sure that staff has clarity, make sure council's feeling good about everything that's on the list, and then we'll do some reflection in terms of how's everything shaping up with the goals. Does that sound good? Great. Okay, well then before we head out, why don't we just go around the room and each person shares a reflection from tonight from either from the context map or from the department work in the pipeline, something that is, particularly on your mind that you're looking forward to discussing more tomorrow.
I'm looking forward to talking about the new goals that I know are on the horizon that we have.
Mm-hmm.
You don't look like you're looking forward to it.
I would say how so many of those intersectional be covered here, how's it gonna be covered here?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the small group discussions. Chance to dive a little deeper. Get more. Goals.
Find out what the goals are from the council.
You're like,
So
just tell me what to
direction
do.
on What happens, what do we need to get ready for between now and
Yeah, I feel like give me my marching orders so that I can get as much done as possible and kind of leave the organization in a good place.
you kind of summed it up, yep.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm interested in really hearing people's thoughts and kind of, our individual approaches towards these different items.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's vision for the future. Yeah.
I'm excited about a conversation to make sure that everybody's needs in all of our departments are met and then hopefully exceeded.
What the council is going to say and sharing this council.
I'm looking forward to small group discussions as well, and also having just kind of a new, updated, clear version or vision of kind of where we're going and what we're going to be focusing on.
I'm just looking forward to everyone with the clear understanding of the path forward, getting on the same page.
I'm really looking forward to lunch because I'm excited about the sandwich I ordered. Seriously, though, I think I'd echo this side of the table right here. I'm really excited to sort of hear the new council and how everyone sort of interacts with each other in the thought process and getting to know new councilors a little better.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to also hearing more about the goals.
I'm looking forward to figuring out how we can maximize results on existing resources.
I'm looking forward to all of those words that we shared at the beginning of the day. I see the connections between them and the positive forces behind them that I think will enhance what we can be as a community.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to path forward. It's all new to me. This is the first time I've ever attended anything like this, so it's been a great experience. So looking forward to participating and in the vision.
Yeah, you timed it really nicely to be
Yeah.
able to join the team,
Exactly.
get a really
That's
nice
it.
orientation,
Yeah.
and then get your marching orders in terms of what you need to do. Great. Well, thank you everyone for your participation and your engagement tonight. I hope you go home and have something nice waiting for you when you go home to relax and unwind, and then we'll
Oh,
pick it up
Netflix,
tomorrow.
according to the mayor.
There's DoorDash, Netflix.
Yeah. You can leave anything you want in here. This room will be locked, so.
All right, see you all tomorrow.